In regulatory affairs, writing is not just about putting words on paper, it is about communicating science in a way that is clear, precise, and compliant. Every document you prepare, whether it's a clinical summary, a response to regulators, or a labeling section, carries critical information that can directly impact approval decisions. That's why regulatory writing is considered a core skill, and mastering it requires more than just technical knowledge. In this module, we focus on three essential pillars: clarity and structure, scientific storytelling, and common writing mistakes. Let's begin with clarity and structure. Regulatory documents are often complex, filled with scientific data and technical terminology. But complexity should never lead to confusion. Clarity means that your reader, or whether it's a reviewer at the US, Food and Drug Administration, or the European Medicines Agency, can easily understand your message without ambiguity. The first step to achieving clarity is logical structure. Every document should follow a clear flow. Thus, start with the purpose, present the data, explain the interpretation, conclude with a clear message. This ensures that the reader does not have to search for meaning. It is presented step by step. Another key aspect is consistency. Terminology, units, abbreviations, and formatting should remain consistent throughout the document. Inconsistencies can create confusion and reduce credibility. Sentence structure also matters. Short, direct sentences are easier to understand than long, complicated ones. For example, instead of writing a long sentence with multiple clauses, break it into smaller, focused statements. Now let's move to the second pillar, scientific storytelling. At first glance, storytelling may not seem relevant in regulatory writing, but in reality, every regulatory document tells a story, the story of a drug's development, its safety, and its effectiveness. Scientific storytelling is about presenting data in a way that is logical, coherent, and persuasive without exaggeration. It answers three key questions. What was done? What was found? Why does it matter? For example, instead of simply listing study results, you guide the reader through the findings. You start with the objective of the study, then present the results, and finally explain how those results support the overall benefit-risk profile of the drug. This creates a narrative that is easy to follow. Another important element is context. Data should never be presented in isolation. Always explain how the results compare to expectations, previous studies, or clinical relevance. For instance, if a drug shows a reduction in symptoms, explain whether that reduction is clinically meaningful. Scientific storytelling also requires balance. You must present both strengths and limitations. Overstating results or ignoring risks can lead to regulatory concerns. Now, let's discuss the third pillar, common writing mistakes. Even experienced writers can fall into certain traps, and avoiding these mistakes is essential for effective regulatory communication. One common mistake is ambiguity. Using vague words like approximately, generally, or somewhat without clear context can create confusion. Regulatory writing requires precision. Another frequent issue is redundancy. Repeating the same information in different ways makes the document longer without adding value. This can frustrate reviewers and reduce readability. Overly complex sentences are also a major problem. Long sentences with multiple ideas can be difficult to follow. If a sentence feels complicated, it probably is. Break it down. Inconsistent terminology is another critical mistake. For example, referring to the same drug by different names or abbreviations in different sections can confuse the reader. There is also the issue of lack of alignment. Sometimes the data presented does not fully support the conclusion. This disconnect can raise serious concerns during regulatory review. Finally, poor formatting and organization can make even good content difficult to understand. Missing headings, unclear tables, or inconsistent numbering can disrupt the flow of the document. To avoid these mistakes, always review your writing from the perspective of the reader. Ask yourself, is this clear? Is this consistent? Is this supported by data? To summarize, regulatory writing is a critical skill that combines science and communication. Clarity and structure ensure that information is easy to understand. Scientific storytelling helps present data in a logical and meaningful way, and avoiding common mistakes improves accuracy, credibility, and readability. In the end, effective regulatory writing is not about writing more, it's about writing better. Because in regulatory affairs, clear communication can make the difference between approval and delay.
Subscribe to MedPharma Global on YouTube. Get the latest medical and pharmaceutical updates. Click the subscribe button and join our community.